Good morning. Um, so when I signed up for this conference, I had two key things in mind. One was to actually learn from all of you and get the outside view in a traditional integrated energy company where I work in Shell. And secondly, use this session, use the collective wisdom here to test a use case around transportation and mobility, which essentially transcends into many, many other areas in our lives. My introduction, I have been with Shell for about 7 years. Prior to Shell, been a banker and did a bunch of things in FMCG as well. What got me hooked on to Shell was this whole challenge around solving the energy issues. Just think about it. The mobile phone that you use, the electricity that we are consuming in this room, the car that you have driven to this hotel or taken a cab ride, it's all linked to the energy that we are using today. And I wanted to actually ask a question. How many of us are aware of the climate change agenda? Just show of hands. Yeah. And how many of us are actually aware of the 1.5 degree mission which the global leaders signed up in Paris conference in 2015? So the point that I'm making here is it's a very complex issue to solve, but each of us in this room and outside are in some way connected with it. And that's where data and insights from data is going to help us solve this challenge. So in my storyline, basically I want to explain to you how this is even connected remotely with Shell as an integrated energy company, and some of the things that we are trying to do in driving insight-driven discussions in this B2B landscape. Sorry. Oops. Wow. So apologies for this, but this slide is essentially a bit of introduction about the business that I am in. So the fuel card business in Shell, the numbers don't look up here on the slide, but let me give you a very quick run through. So we are world's largest B2B fuel card business globally. This B2B fuel card is given to all the logistics companies such as DHL, UPS, even mobility ride-hailing companies such as Grab and Uber are our customers, and they use these fuel cards as a fuel spend platform. So we have about 2 million, we serve about 2 million B2B customers globally across 40 markets. So you can imagine the amount of data lake that has been created over the last 40, 50 years. And a little bit of introduction about what Shell Retail does globally. The last 5 years, we have actually shifted our strategy from being a fuels retailer to the world's largest retailer. We have close to about 44,000 sites globally, serving 30 million plus customers on a daily basis. Now, you can imagine if we have sold close to 450 million units of snacks, ranging from Pringles all the way to even having detergents and laundry items in some of our retail stores. There's a huge amount of insight that can be extracted from this entire retail engine. But at the same time, as I go back to this starting point, which was around the energy challenge, it's also about using this data. Are we capturing the right quality of data and being able to extract insights from that data to create more efficient platform for our customers. So for example, can we not have, what takes Shell or any energy company to have solar panels on its roofs and have an impact on climate change? How do we ensure that customers are using the right tools and technologies? And can Shell lead the way across their sites, across the fuel card, to help solve this problem around energy challenge? So I think it's important to reflect on some of the world-class best practices in the industry around data and insight-driven sort of strategies. So Amazon, Netflix are classic. There are many actually, but then the reason I extracted these 3 brands was we use it on a day-to-day basis. So right from Amazon Prime, which is our customer here in Singapore, they use our fuel cards. We help them solve their energy management issues in the region. But one of my favorite examples is GE. Also, having worked in GE when I started my career, how many of us know about GE Predix engine? Does anybody know about Predix? So if you Google Predix, it's actually their own operating system, similar to Linux. You know what Predix does? It's an amazing powerhouse where IoT sensors, which are installed in GE's gas turbines, which they sell to Boeing and Airbus, across all the industrial plants, the data from the IoT sensors tracks the asset performance and sends it to the Predix operating platform. Predix then generates insights from that data. And then that analytics is shared back with the customer. So for example, if it's a long-haul flight from Singapore to LA, and if the aircraft engine can have a better performance, it's going to consume less fuel, and therefore have a huge impact on climate change. So in a B2B context, Predix has sort of led the way. It's a sort of North Star. Is Shell there yet? I'm not sure, but it's a long way to go to actually match the investments and the appetite which GE has thrown in using Predix as a model. I would highly recommend you to take a closer look at Predix. I don't know why the slide is not doing justice, but the message around this is around convergence and change. And when I talk about convergence, we are using a lot of data and insights in our discussions with policymakers in Singapore and in other parts of the world, where policymakers want to have a dialogue around energy conservation and efficiency. So as I said, whether it is the development of smart cities, mobility and transportation, payments, all of this is sort of at a stage of confluence. And it's really exciting time here because each of us in this ecosystem has a big role to play. And you can only have these discussions driven by insights. Let me give you an example. We are about what, 7.5 billion population? It's going to be 10 billion in the next 15 years. So there's going to be a huge emphasis on mobility and transportation. The world is going to change because on one end, you're going to have less and less of gasoline and diesel-driven cars, and China is already leading the way in terms of electric cars. It's 100% year-on-year growth in the EV car sales, and we are aware of that, and we are taking active steps. But just think about it. In 10 years from now, if you have 50 million EV cars, it's going to put pressure on the grid because the electricity grid has got a finite supply. So the point that I'm making here is it's only going to be a data-driven world where you can actually have meaningful dialogue with the OEMs, with the electricity utility companies to look at different ways at reducing consumption and improving the efficiency of your product. Because EV cars are going to charge at a very, very high rate, and the grid is not going to be able to sustain that demand. So how do you solve the energy climate agenda in a much more sustained manner? That's going to be driven by meaningful data and insights from the data. I take this example of autonomous cars. We're having discussions with players in the autonomous OEM space, and it's amazing. It's the amount of data that's generated for an autonomous powertrain is equivalent to about 3,000 emails per hour. So the data that comes from 3,000 emails per hour. And in 20 years from now, you're going to have autonomous cars. Your car is going to be an integrated entertainment system. It's going to be an integrated workplace. So how do we use data to maximize time, improve efficiency while you're on road, and at the same time consume less fuel, consume less energy? That's the paradigm change that we are going to see in the next couple of decades. This slide is really around predictive maintenance, so actually prescriptive maintenance. So when we talk about reducing total costs of ownership for our customers, we are at a stage where we have moved from descriptive analytics to what we call prescriptive analytics. And in the interim, it was the predictive analytics, which was talking to customers about which engines are going to require efficiency improvement. So prescriptive is just the way we go to a doctor in case we are having symptoms of illness or whatever, right? So that's the extent of data that we need to embed in our systems, and technology is a key enabler there. Back home in Singapore, Scania is doing trials with Port Authority of Singapore on platooning of trucks. Now, this is a technology which is going to be a huge game changer in the mobility space. Platooning, in simple words, is semi-autonomous driven trucks. So think of platooning as a way by which data, interconnected vehicles, are going to talk to each other in terms of the safety distances, and by that, we're going to have fewer accidents on road and much higher efficiency levels in terms of consumption of fuel. So mobility as a service, mobility and transportation as a service, is, in my view, going to be the biggest disruptor in the next few years. And if you club that with fintech, and it's going to make our lives far simpler to live in. I bring this case of how we in Singapore have used telematics as a product to improve driver behavior on road. Do you know that about 20% of fuel consumption can be reduced if there is good driving behavior? So in Singapore, we are working with the government to actually install telematics in all the trucks and vehicles for our customers to actually track driver efficiency and have its impact on climate change, on safety. I wanted to play this video, if you could.
Today, businesses want their products delivered on time and in full. The increasing demand for more efficient and reliable delivery services is creating stress in the logistics ecosystem. Without digitization, it's easy for things to become chaotic. Emails are flooded, phones are constantly ringing, orders are often misplaced, and delivery vehicles are hard to track, or worse, underutilized. Missing orders, damaged items, late deliveries, and insufficient drivers could lead to loss of customers and waste of precious business time and growth opportunities. Which is why we bring you Connected Freight, a smart freight solution that empowers retailers, suppliers, and third-party logistic companies to work seamlessly as one, thereby creating a network effect for both process and asset optimization. Retailers, imagine your product ordering process from multiple suppliers for your store is now made as quick and easy as your personal online shopping experience. Our highly customizable web kiosk platform simplifies ordering, invoicing, and payment processes and tracks your delivery status with the added bonus of flexible delivery options. Suppliers, you'll have a dedicated platform to manage and track all your orders, products, pricing, and promotions without the need for juggling multiple ordering channels. Our sophisticated tour planning application will also optimize the utilization and efficiency of your delivery fleet. Don't have enough vehicles of your own? Fret not. You can easily outsource your deliveries to our fleet network. We will get more jobs done for you at super competitive rates. And for logistics companies that run like clockwork, we have the best tools to digitize your workflow, manage your fleet, and improve your driver's productivity and vehicle's capacity. Our toolkits also include a mobile app for drivers with barcode scanning capability, proof of delivery, and route planning functionalities. No matter which part of the logistics ecosystem you specialize in, our suite of offerings is best positioned to customize to your business needs and better prepare you for the increasingly sophisticated future ahead. Engage Connected Freight today for a connected experience and a smart freight solution.
So that's the company which we invested in, and now we are using this with our customers, focusing on warehouse optimization, route optimization, demand and supply optimization. So it's with the message around do more with less, conserve energy, and increase your efficiency. I wanted to conclude my slide, again, apologies with the slide format here, but artificial intelligence is, everybody talks about it, but its practical applications is something which we are still getting our head around with. There's a lot that we can do with AI, especially with some of the tools that we are running today in-house with machine learning and deep learning. There is a huge amount of investments that is required, but at the same time, some use cases which we want to develop over the next couple of quarters that helps in improving the efficiency in the whole logistics, mobility, and transportation segments. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Welcome to take questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kaushik, for a whirlwind tour of touching topics like climate change, energy, and giving us a glimpse of how big brands and big corporates like Shell are innovating and coping with the disruption they see by coming up with solutions like Connected Freight and collaborating with smaller companies. So, guys, I'd like to open the floor for any questions for Kaushik.
Hi. Is that working? talking to a pillow. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Morgan. I'm from Market. It's really great to hear you talking about how you synthesize insights. We see a lot of evidence that businesses don't use insights when they're making decisions. My question to you is, how often do you think your executives are using insights to drive their decisions? Two numbers that I've seen recently, Forrester's saying 45%, down from 49% of decisions in the last 2 years. Another number from PwC, executives using insights 5% of the time. So realistically, how often do you think holistic insights are being used?
I think that's a great question. At the most senior leadership level, I think there's a lot of commitment to do it. But, okay, let's be honest. There are many tools already existing in our system. I'm talking about the business that I am in. But usage of those tools to extract insights, it's a mindset change that you first need to drive. Whether it's sales or marketing or pricing or finance, it's a mindset shift to use insights from the data. So that's one. Two, there's data integrity issues as well. Because from the legacy systems, you have huge data lakes. And then the migration to the new systems may not have been as seamless as it should have been. So there's always this issue around whether this data is correct or not. And that leads to people sort of not spending quality time around working with the data sets. But I think it's also about using or developing use cases. So what we are trying to do here is use an agile method of using, or developing 2 or 3 use cases, and then explain to the wider organization in terms of the merits of using insights from the data. I mean, if you're not able to cull insights from the data, it's anyways waste of time. So I think it's early days. I would say quite early days, actually. Thank you.
Just to add a reflection, not because I'm eggshell, but what I find is that in many organizations, when they have maybe a strategic launch, a repositioning of certain brand, or if in the case which Kaushik shared, you're really trying to see how do we grapple with the digital disruption and what all avenues should you pursue. That is where I see organizations really strap up, look and dig and understand the change happening holistically and try to navigate that. A company who have the resources and wherewithal to do that, they do that. But I think one of the challenges is how do we then bring in insights on an operational basis day in, day out, and how good are we at that, and how good is the data for that, and you spot on. That's clearly a big challenge.
Hiya. Yeah, I'm a big person for vertical farming, and certainly with the... So I really enjoy that side of things, and without sounding too challenging, when I charge everything and use everything through the new systems with Google wind turbines and solar panels, so I don't use anything off the grid at all. How it be able to stay viable in that way when you can buy a Google wind turbine offline for about $200 that can run your entire house.
Yeah.
It's how do you feel that Shell are going to be able to move past that side of things?
No, fantastic question. So the short answer is we are investing. New Energies as a business within Shell has a mandate to invest close to, it's a sizable amount. I'm not able to share the amount, but it's sizable in renewables and wind and solar. But the fundamental point is around energy storage. So if you actually check out this company called Sonnen in Germany, it's an energy storage company, and Shell invested 60 million euros in that, and we've bought equity. So the next shift is really going to be around energy storage, because you got to realize that And I would recommend you guys to read the duck curve, which is the utility consumption throughout the day. So there are peak times and there are off-peak times, right? So storage companies need to step in, and energy players need to invest in storage as a segment, because fast charging, discharging, these are going to only add more complexity. So the short, we really need to move fast if we are really serious about EV and alternative energies. Then storage is a lot of innovation is already happening in that space. So yeah, we're committed to that. Thanks.